So I don't usually make videos like this where I share my thoughts a little bit more unfiltered from my front porch. And I usually am pretty hesitant when wading into conversations that are really layered and complicated and nuanced. And this week has been really rough. But I've been thinking a lot in particular about my pastor friends. So this video is primarily geared towards pastors and particularly towards white pastors. As I've been thinking about all of us who are heading into this weekend, shrouded by pain and heaviness on so many levels, probably already preparing for this weekend and how you're going to navigate through it and what you're going to talk about and how you're going to talk about it. And I think that one of the greatest challenges that we as pastors carry is the call to be people of the both and, right? We care deeply for our people, for all of our people. We try to understand and love people from all sorts of walks of life and experiences. We really hope to welcome them all into our communities, which means that in any given moment of time, at any singular moment of crisis, we have multiple responses happening in our community simultaneously. Right? And this week is no different. Our people, your people, probably land all over the map. Some you agree with, some you don't, and you seek to love them all. Yes, because that's your calling. And at these moments, in weeks like we're in right now, they bring a great deal of risk as leaders of the both. And the risk is connected specifically to the presence of trauma. And without a doubt, this has been a traumatic week for many people. And the presence of trauma literally changes everything about a moment. I know that I'm a bit biased because I'm a pastor who's also a therapist. But these are moments when I am convinced that a trauma-informed perspective is essential, because without it, we will end up doing violence in the name of keeping peace. And there's two particular places around trauma that I really want us to pay attention to this weekend as we think about leading our communities and our churches and what conversations we have. The first is that one of the most profoundly frustrating experiences that I have as a therapist is repeatedly watching the way that other people's response to someone's trauma has an equal or greater impact on the way that pain gets internalized and gets carried with the traumatized person. When trauma is embraced, when it's cared about, when it's validated, when it's responded to appropriately, the outcome of those lives that carry that trauma is profoundly different than the outcome for those whose trauma gets minimized, ignored, or actually reacted against and pushed back on, right? The second thing is that the moments immediately following trauma matter. And these are not moments to lean in with our brains, to assess situations, to gather data, to present perspectives, to make sure people aren't left out. The moments immediately following trauma are moments when the traumatized deserve to be seen, heard, cared about, extended compassion, and loved. And yes, those are moments when those of us who have the privilege of not being traumatized may actually be left out or marginalized for a moment. The moments immediately following trauma are not both and moments. They are singular and attentive moments to care for the injured parties. The conversation that I've been watching and reading over and over today that has left me unsettled is the felt need to defend those who end up getting lumped in with the perpetrators of violence. Specifically, it's the numerous Facebook posts, videos, comments, conversations where really well-meaning individuals want to remind all of us that not all police officers are racist murderers, that many do not even approve of the violent acts, that many stand in opposition of the acts that occurred this last week. The temptation that we have as leaders of the both and is to want to hold the validity of those statements, which of course are true. Of course those police officers exist, and they're in my community and they're in your community. The temptation that we have as leaders of the both and is that we want to hold the validity of those statements alongside the validity of those who are traumatized. This is not a time for a both and response. I guess let me give you a bit of a parallel narrative that might help this make sense, right? I really believe that if a young person walked into your church or your church office in tears and described being raped by a group of men, that your response would probably not be to tell this person to remember that not all men are rapists and to begin telling them about your good friends and wanting to make sure that the friends that you have, these men who are really good men, don't get lumped into the group of rapists. I don't think that would be your response. I actually think your response would be to lean in with compassion and even outrage over the men who are rapists, about the ones who did perpetrate that violence against this young person. Of course, there are always more information. Of course, there's always backstories, and there are always those who stand as counterexamples to the perpetrators of violence and racism. Of course, there are. But the aftermath of trauma is not the moment to point those things out. Whatever the amount of pain is that good-hearted police officers may experience by being lumped in for the moment with this general bucket of their bad colleagues, whatever pain and discomfort those of us who are white and carry our privilege have to hold getting lumped into the category of others who are perpetrating violence against people of color. Whatever amount of pain that is pales in comparison to the trauma of the violence perpetuated by those people who have actually done the violence. Right now, there are good people hurting, being killed, being repeatedly traumatized. And it is a secondary act of violence against the traumatized to defend the honor of good men, of good police officers, of good women, when we have not fully extended compassion, care, and justice for the traumatized. So I want to encourage you, pastors, leaders, friends, this week, as you prepare to lead and shepherd your community through difficult times, do not lean into the temptation for short-term peace in the both and unintentionally re-violate those who are already in profound pain. There will be other times for both and conversations. We don't have to give that up. This just isn't the time to lead with that. This is the time to lead with compassion, care, and love for those who have and are continuing to experience trauma. And if you've made it through this video, I hope it's been helpful. If you have thoughts or questions, please feel free to drop them in the comment section below, shoot me an email. My prayer is that God would be gracious to all of us as we seek to lead with kindness, as we seek to lead with humility and honesty and faithfulness, trying to navigate difficult times. But this week in particular, hold up the concept of trauma. Look through the lens of trauma. Because if we don't, we will cause more violence. We will cause more trauma again to those who are already in so much pain. Take care. God bless.